Mojo,
Yeah.
guess what?
What is that?
We're all going to go see Purple Rain tonight.
You are?
Yep.
Look, yeah, I've seen it 12 times.
I've seen it too many times, but I want to watch it again.
I've seen it 12 times, and I'll go watch it tonight. I tell you what, I'm going to ask everybody out there to go watch Purple Rain. But what time will you be watching it? About 15, 20 minutes, maybe?
No, about 3 minutes.
About 3 minutes?
Knocking on my door now.
Okay.
So it's 1983, and whilst on the 1999 tour, Prince had been writing continuously in a purple notebook. He had in fact been outlining a film project to be loosely based on his own life. Prince's contract with his management was coming to an end, and he informed them he would only re-sign if they could secure him a movie, and his name had to appear above the title. Prince's management had approached several Hollywood studios about financing a movie based on Prince's ideas, but since Prince was still not a household name, there wasn't much interest in the project. Indeed, even people in his own camp had their doubts.
We first got a drift of the idea of Purple Rain during the 1999 tour. You know, like, yeah, right. I was probably the most skeptical of anybody in the camp. It's like, who the hell does he think he is? You know, great artist. It's fun tour, love working for him, but a movie? Get out of here. I don't think anybody took the idea seriously but Prince.
In the end, they decided to produce the film themselves and turned to William Blim, a screenwriter who had won Emmy Awards and was executive producer on the Fame TV series. Not knowing if the series would be renewed for a third season, he agreed to meet with Prince and Steve Fargnoli. Blin realised that an important part of the story Prince was trying to convey concerned his father, John L. Nelson. He was semi-communicative about his dad. He played me some of his father's music on the piano, and when he played and when he talked about his father's life, you could tell that his father is very key in what he's about. It was as if he was sorting out his own mystery, on honest quest to figure himself out. He saved all the money on shrinks and put it in the movie. In April 1983, the 1999 tour comes to an end. The tour had been hugely successful, grossing around $10 million, making it one of the largest money-making tours of the year. The tour established Prince as a true crossover star, capable of drawing huge mixed black and white audience. On the last night, Prince's band engaged the Time in a food and shaving cream fight that started during the Time set and continued backstage before turning into a full-scale war back at the hotel. After the tour, Des Dickerson left the band to form his own group, the Modernaires. Des said about his departure, "I didn't feel comfortable with myself anymore. Because of that, I became very difficult to be around. I was pretty moody. Later I realised that that was just a byproduct of not being very happy with what was happening and where we were going, and at the same time feeling there wasn't a whole lot I could do to have any impact on it. I dealt with it by being a jerk. I guess if I had been him, I would probably have fired me." Des Dickerson's replacement was 19-year-old Wendy Melvoin. The daughter of jazz keyboardist Michael Melvoin, she had no previous experience, but had studied jazz guitar for several years. Wendy was a good friend of Lisa Coleman, having grown up together, and travelled with the band on the 1999 tour. She would occasionally jam with the band during sound checks or rehearsals if Des Dickerson wasn't around. There were also personnel changes for the Time after the firing of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and with Monty Moore also leaving. In came Paul Peterson and Mark Cardenas on keyboards, and Rocky Harris on bass, although he would be replaced after only a few weeks by Jerry Hubbard after failing to turn up on time for shooting a scene in the Purple Rain movie. May 1983, and Prince and his band members, as well as the Time and Vanity 6, begin extensive acting, improvisation and dance classes in preparation for the planned movie. Actor and director Don Amendolia, who was in Minneapolis to direct a play, led them in theatre and improvisational games 3 times a week. On the 16th of May 1983, Prince appears at the 3rd Annual Minnesota Music Awards and was honoured with 6 awards, including Musician, Producer and Male Vocalist of the Year. he ended the night with a 10-minute jam with DMSR on borrowed equipment, with members of his band, Jesse Johnson and Morris Day of the Time, and Vanity 6. After the award ceremony, Prince and friends headed to First Avenue, where another jam session followed. On the 23rd of May, William Blynn's first draft of the script was completed under the title Dreams. More sexually explicit than the final script, Dreams portrayed Wendy and Lisa as lovers and included a song, Mia Bocca, which would later appear in Under the Cherry Moon, before ending up on Jill Jones's 1987 album. Halfway through a second draft of Dreams, Prince informed Blinn he wanted the word purple in the title. On the 3rd of August 1983, Wendy Melvoin makes her live debut with Prince at a benefit concert for the Minnesota Dance Theatre Company at First Avenue. The $25 a ticket went towards raising $23,000 for the company. The concert was instigated by Lois Halton, artistic director of the long-time modern dance troupe. She met Prince during the band's dance classes and asked him to play the benefit show. Prince brought in a mobile recording truck from New York to record the show and proceeded to play a blistering 70-minute set, which included the debut of 6 new tracks: Let's Go Crazy, Electric Intercourse, Computer Blue, I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, and Purple Rain.
This song is called Computer Blue. This song is called I Would Die For You. 1, 2, 3.
After hearing the recordings, Prince used the basic tracks of I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, and Purple Rain for the upcoming album. During the set, Prince also performed When You Were Mine, Delirious, Automatic, Little Red Corvette, and Joni Mitchell's A Case of You. The night ended with Lois Halton coming on stage and proclaiming Prince to be a king, before Prince and the band closed the night out with Purple Rain and DMSR.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to present the artistic director for the Minnesota Dance Theater, Miss Lois Halton.
We have a king.
During the summer and into the autumn of 1983, Prince continued writing material for the upcoming album and movie. Prince also recorded some instrumentals for possible use in the movie: Cruising Down the Highway, Toy Box, and Divinity, and a reworking of Possessed as an instrumental. Prince also recorded G-Spot, which would eventually end up on Jill Jones's album, and Electric Intercourse, which was initially intended for the movie but was replaced by The Beautiful Ones. Prince also began working on tracks for a second Vanity 6 album, including Sex Shooter and the hilarious Vibrator, which features Prince playing a storekeeper who sells batteries to Vanity for her body massager.
Well, what do you want?
Goodness.
Goodness nothing, baby, I'm busy. What do you want?
Do you have any batteries that fit my body massager?
Body massager? Please.
Right. You see, my back's been acting up lately.
Yeah, my back's been acting up too. In fact, it acts up every time my boyfriend leaves.
No, really, my back...
Save it, honey. Put it in the bank. I know it's happening. Here, these ought to work.
Yeah, that'll work. Thank you.
Yeah. Go on, get out of here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Body massage, please.
After finishing the second draft of the Dream script, William Blinn returned to Los Angeles, where Fame had been picked up for a third season. The search was now on for a writer-director who could help shape the screenplay written by Blinn. Prince's management offered the job to James Foley, who had directed a film called Reckless. However, he turned it down, but did recommend Albert Magnoli, who had been working as the editor on Reckless. Magnoli's only directorial credit at that time was an award-winning college film called Jazz. Magnoli was shown the script written by Blinn, but didn't think it had the drama or direction needed to film Prince's story. I saw in the story the potential to do something very risky, very controversial, something that had a very strong meaning. I ended up telling Bob Cavallo my story ideas, which eventually evolved into the new script. Magnoli's first meeting with Prince was very promising. We sat down and I pitched him the concept, and the first words out of his mouth were, "You've only known me for 10 minutes, yet you tell me basically my story. How is that possible?" In September of 1983, Albert Magnoli arrives in Minneapolis. I walked around with everyone, talked with them, saw what their potential was. I hung around at their rehearsals, went to dinner with them late at night after they'd been playing for hours. The characters in the film are extensions of the personalities of Morris, Prince and the others. Their exaggerations or minimisations developed to fit the story that never happened, yet in a strange way was their reality. During this period, Magnoli made several changes to the script, the final scene being rewritten just a few weeks before shooting began. In the version of the script dated October 10th, the parents of the kid, the character to be played by Prince, were both dead. The mother murdered by the father, who in turn kills himself. But as we now know in Prince's original outlines for the film, it was the mother who kills the father and then herself when Prince's character, the kid, is just 7 years old, leaving him traumatised and schizophrenic, flipping between behaviour patterns of both his parents during the film. With the kid losing the battle of the bands and having a breakdown on stage, he does get the girl Vanity, and the final scene shows them in bed together, and then presumably the next morning the kid awakes, walks over to the drawer and pulls out the gun his mother used and kills himself. The kid wakes up screaming, it was just a dream. By October 14th, the scene had been reworked so that everyone lives. Just weeks before shooting on Purple Rain, as it was now titled, began, Vanity suddenly decided to quit the movie and Vanity 6. At the time, several explanations were given for her sudden departure. There were rumours she was asking for too much money, or that she had broken up from a relationship with Prince. She was also depressed about the relationships Prince continued to have with other women, and she had become addicted to drink and drugs. She later went on to explain her reasons in some interviews. I knew Purple Rain was going to be big, so therefore it would have made Vanity 6 very big, and then it would have been very tacky to leave after that. I wanted a solo career, and I wanted to do it now. I didn't want to stall. The search was now on for a replacement, and close to 1,000 women auditioned in Los Angeles and New York. Prince settled on 22-year-old model Patricia Cotero. Born in Santa Monica, California, Patricia got into show business as a teenager, singing and acting on TV shows. After being cast in Purple Rain, she was renamed Apollonia, and Vanity 6 became Apollonia 6. On the 1st of November 1983, shooting on the Purple Rain movie begins at sites in and around Minneapolis. The 10-week shoot would struggle to get all the outdoor shots in Minneapolis shot before the harsh Minneapolis winter started. As a result, several scenes had to be shot in Los Angeles, while indoor shots continued in Minneapolis. The film wrapped in December 1983, although a few scenes had to be reshot in Los Angeles on the 27th of December. Post-production for Purple Rain was now able to begin. During the early part of 1984, Prince spent a lot of time at Sunset Sound Studios, laying down tracks for albums with Apollonia 6 and The Time, as well as tracks for Purple Rain. Prince also recorded an album with Sheila Escovedo, a long-time friend of his. They first met when Prince was recording his first album. Sheila Escovedo is the daughter of percussionist Pete Escovedo, who has played with Santana and Azteca. Sheila began playing at the age of 5 on the congas, and by the time she was 15, she had joined Azteca, singing and playing percussion. She then went on to play with George Duke's group, and by the time she was 22, had toured and recorded with George Duke, Diana Ross, Herbie Hancock, to name a few. During 1983, she also played in Marvin Gaye's 24-piece band on his last tour, and then with Lionel Richie until February 1984. Prior to recording her album, Sheila recorded vocals with Prince on Erotic City. I never really wanted to be a solo artist. It just happened to come across. Prince asked me to sing on Erotic City. It was strange because he just came to me, "Why don't you do your own album?" I said, "Nah." He said, "No, you should do it." You've been playing behind a lot of people for a long time, and it's about time that you did your own album. Sheila's album was recorded in just 5 days at Sunset Sound. Prince introduced her to his management, who in turn hooked her up with Warner Brothers.
He asked me to come into the studio in LA and record with him. I said, okay. So I went in and I was looking for some drums or percussion and there weren't any. And he says, I want you to sing. And I said, sing? I don't know how to sing. Well, before I met Prince, I was Sheila Escovedo. I was a Latin jazz percussionist, session player. And meeting Prince had opened more doors, and I became Sheila E. and became very successful very fast.
On the 16th of May 1984, when Dove's Cry is released as a single in the US, it became Prince's first US #1 single, selling over 2 million copies. It also became the biggest selling single of 1984. June 1984. Sneak previews of Purple Rain were held across the USA, with positive response. It was reported that 50% of the sneak preview cards were marked excellent, and 28% very good. On the 4th of June, Sheila Escovedo's debut album, The Glamorous Life, is released. Now renamed Sheila E. by Prince, Sheila was credited as the sole writer of 4 of the 6 tracks on the album. Shortberry Strawcake was listed as a collaboration with Jesse Johnson, and Next Time Wipe the Lipstick Off Your Collar with Apollonia 6's Brenda Bennett. However, at the ASCAP Copyright Office, Prince as Jamie Starr is registered as writer of all the songs, barring Noon Rendezvous, which was co-written with Sheila E. At the time of the album's release, Sheila emphatically denied that Prince appeared on the record, but despite Sheila's claims, Prince can actually be heard on the album. Sheila's father admitted to Rolling Stone they didn't want people to know she was backed up by Prince, because it would look like she wasn't making it on her own merits. That's why he stayed out of the credits, but everyone knows when you hear the album, you can tell it's him. The album did well, reaching number 28 on the US Billboard 200, and produced 3 singles, The Glamorous Life, which reached number 7 on the US Billboard Pop chart, and number 9 on the Billboard Black chart, and had 2-week spot at number 1 on the Billboard Dance Disco Top 80 chart, becoming the second associated artist to top this chart after Nasty Girl by Vanity 6 did it in September 1982. The Bella St. Mark, which charted at number 34 on the US Billboard Pop chart and number 68 on the Billboard Black chart, fared much better in the UK, where it reached number 18 on the UK Top 40 Singles chart. The third and final single, Noon Rendezvous, failed to chart. On the 7th of June 1984, Prince celebrates his 26th birthday with a gig at First Avenue. Prince used the occasion to try out new material, including Roadhouse Garden and Our Destiny. Prince also performed Noon Rendezvous, dedicating it to that little girl over there, that Sheila E.
This next song dedicates that little girl over there, that Sheila E. dame. 1, 2, 3.
On the 22nd of June 1984, When Doves Cry is released in the UK as a single and became Prince's first UK top 10 hit, reaching number 4. On the 25th of June 1984, Purple Rain the album is released, 5 weeks before the film. Within days of release, it had sold over 1 million copies in the States and went on to sell over 25 million copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling albums of all time and the 3rd best-selling soundtrack album of all time, certified 13 times platinum. The album stayed in the number 1 spot in the States for over 6 months, something only achieved by a handful of artists. If it was 1999 that established Prince as a huge star in America, then it was Purple Rain that made him into a global superstar. For the first time, Prince shared the credit with his band on the album, with the credits reading, produced, arranged, composed and performed by Prince and the Revolution. Only 3 tracks were a Prince one-man band effort: The Beautiful Ones, When Doves Cry and Darling Nikki. The album was a clear attempt by Prince to achieve mass market appeal and remains one of his most commercial and accessible albums. Featuring a mixture of rock, pop and ballads, the album was full of hit songs and iconic moments, like the church sermon opening of Let's Go Crazy and its famous guitar solo ending. To the pleading and desperate screams of the beautiful ones, to the sparse and strikingly autobiographical When Doves Cry.
This is what it sounds like when doves cry.
To the joyful celebrations of Baby I'm a Star, and of course the epic guitar solo and strings of Purple Rain that bring the album to a close. The critics were full of praise for Purple Rain. Robert Hilburn of the Los Angeles Times wrote, aware that he has to reach beyond his hardcore following if the film is to succeed, Prince has toned down the extreme aspects of his pop game plan. Instead of the X-rated lyrics and sexual bravado that have been at the heart of his maverick persona, he leans towards more conventional language. Prince's music too has shed some of its quirky, experimental edges. Rather than cheapen his vision, Prince has simply made it possible for more people to share it. This is a work of an enormous pop imagination and appeal. Tony Mitchell from Sounds called the album another triumph and thought it would help him get the kind of British following he's long deserved. However, not everyone was happy with Prince's new album. Famously, Tipper Gore, the wife of Al Gore, who was a United States Senator at the time, bought the album for her 11-year-old daughter. After hearing the opening line in Darling Nikki, in which Prince sings, "I knew a girl named Nikki, I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. I met her in a hotel lobby, masturbating with a magazine. She was, in her own words, stunned, but then got mad. Millions of Americans were buying Purple Rain with no idea what to expect. Thousands of parents were giving the album to their children, many even younger than my daughter."
I bought the Purple Rain album for our 11-year-old, and I didn't know that Darling Nikki was on it, and I felt that it was inappropriate for her and her 8- and 6-year-old sister to hear a song describing a girl masturbating in a hotel lobby. I had no warning. In fact, all I knew was that Prince was the new creative teen idol on the scene.
The outrage led to the formation of the Parents Music Resource Centre, or PMRC, a group organised by Tipper Gore and other prominent women in Washington. In their bid to raise awareness about sexual content in pop songs, the PMRC issued a list of the filthy 15 songs they found most objectionable, and Prince's Darling Nikki was number 1. The end result was the birth of the Parental Advisory sticker. 5 singles were released off the album: When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy, Purple Rain, I Would Die For You and Take Me With You, giving Prince 2 US number 1s, with When Doves Cry and Let's Go Crazy. On the 9th of July 1984, the Times' third album, Ice Cream Castle, was released. Prince, as Jamie Starr, had a hand in writing all the songs. 4 were listed as being written jointly by Prince, Morris Day and Jesse Johnson: Ice Cream Castles, If the Kid Can't Make You Come, My Drawers and The Bird. Even though it's credited on the album sleeve to Morris Day and Jesse Johnson, Jungle Love is actually listed as a Prince, Morris Day composition, while Chili Sauce is attributed to Prince, Morris Day and Paul Peterson. Fueled by the success of the Purple Rain movie and Morris Day's charismatic performance, the album became the best-selling Time album, going gold and reaching number 3 on the Black Album chart and number 24 on the Pop chart. The album was full of the usual Time funk jams, including a live recording of The Bird from First Avenue, Prince makes an appearance as a waiter during the amusing Chili Sauce, which sees Morris spouting many of the lines he uses on Apollonia in the Purple Rain movie about brass water beds and Italian cooks.
In my bedroom, I have a brass water bed. Really?
Most confusing is the title, If the Kid Can't Make You Come, which would suggest it was a dig at Prince's character, the Kid, over their tussle for Apollonia in the movie. However, it turns out just to be what Morris calls his modesty.
Cause if the kid can't make you come, nobody.
On the 26th of July 1984, the Purple Rain movie premiere is held in Hollywood's Mann's Chinese Theatre. The premiere was crammed with celebrities including Eddie Murphy, Little Richard, Lionel Richie, Steven Spielberg, to name a few. MTV hosted live coverage and interviews from the post-premiere party at the nearby palace, which was transformed into a purple palace with purple flowers, balloons and streamers. Sheila E. made her first live solo performance before Prince and the Revolution played a short 3-song set of 17 Days, Irresistible Bitch and When Doves Cry. The following day, July the 27th, 1984, Purple Rain opens at 900 screens across the states. The reviews were positive, with many critics citing it as one of the finest rock films ever made. Rolling Stone's Kurt Loder commended the film's cultural accomplishments. This must be the first rock movie in years in which drugs are never even mentioned, let alone used, and in which alcohol is depicted very subtly as a personal hindrance, not a high. The characters spend most of their time working, rehearsing tunes, running through routines, in a determined effort to make something of themselves. Rarely has the work ethic been made to seem so cool. When the first 3-day returns came in, Purple Rain had taken $7.8 million, more than the film had cost to make. It became one of 1984's top box office draws, eventually grossing over $70 million. The film went on to win an Oscar for Best Original Song Score, and Prince also became the only artist other than the Beatles to simultaneously have a #1 album, single and film. Quite remarkable.
Wait a minute, Eddie. We didn't even say anything to each other. Just one question. Why are you a Prince fan?
Because Prince is bad, and I'm looking forward to seeing the movie. The movie's gonna be rough. I wish y'all go all see it tomorrow. Movie's tough. Have some fun. Bye-bye.
The finished movie was like nothing people had seen before, with electrifying live performances making you feel like you're at a concert. Morris Day steals the show with his charisma and comedy double act with Jerome Benton. Just check out the password scene for the best example. But at its heart is the brooding presence of Prince's character, the Kid. The final script, which ended up on the screen, sees the Kid as a brilliant young musician with a great band, holding place at First Avenue, the big local music venue which launches careers in future stars. The Kid and the Revolution are in a rivalry with the equally talented funk group The Time, whose frontman Morris Day wants to oust the Kid out of the club. A beautiful young lady and wannabe singer Apollonia arrives in town to try and make it big. The Kid and Morris fight for her affections, with Morris only wanting her to be in his new girl group so they can replace the Kid at First Avenue. The Kid is struggling with life, tormented by his parents' troubled and violent relationship at home. His relationship with his band is strained, especially with Wendy and Lisa, who have grown tired of the Kid's dictatorial and chauvinistic behaviour, always flatly refusing to listen to their ideas or music. After starting a romance with Apollonia, things quickly fall apart when she agrees to join Morris's group. In a fit of rage, the Kid strikes Apollonia, acting just like his father. As Morris Day and his new girl group, Apollonia 6, begin to put the squeeze on the Kid, he lets his emotions get the better of him on stage, putting his place at First Avenue in further jeopardy. With his own band in disarray and his relationship with Apollonia seemingly over, things get even worse as the Kid returns home and then finds the house trashed from another fight between his parents. As the Kid looks at all the damage, his father lurks in a darkened hallway and silently puts a gun to his head. As the Kid flicks the light switch on, a single gunshot rings out. After the authorities come and go and leave the Kid on his own, he begins to have a panic attack, pacing the room, looking at the outline on the floor of where his father's body lay to a rope hanging down, staring back and forth between both until he sees himself hanging, and in an uncontrollable fit of rage and despair, the Kid trashes the room, pulling over shelves, throwing everything he can, smashing jars of paint with a stick, until he ends up on the floor, throwing sheets of paper into the air out of a chest that has fallen down. As the rage subsides, he grabs one of the sheets of paper to find they are his father's sheet music, and that despite telling him he didn't write them down earlier in the movie as he didn't have to, It now seemed he was more like his father than he ever knew. The kid falls asleep, and when he awakes, surrounded by his father's music, he walks down the hall and into a room. Wendy and Lisa's new tune, which the kid had dismissed earlier, plays on cassette, and after we hear the kid rewind and play a section a couple of times, Purple Rain is suddenly born on the piano. It's a powerful moment in the film and brilliantly shot as the camera slowly moves up the hall while we hear the kid playing the tape, eventually entering the room as the kid starts to play it on the piano. The film's climax is set inside First Avenue and is played out with 4 musical performances. First up are The Time with the Bird, while we see the kid and the Revolution sitting quietly in their dressing room, with no one knowing quite what to say. We see The Time heading back to their dressing room, mocking the Revolution as they go by, before Morris doubles back and asks, "How's the family?" Silently, the kid gets up, grabs his guitar and makes his way to the stage. We see a shot of Morris standing outside his dressing room, with a look of realization of what he has just said. The club falls silent as the Revolution take to the stage, and the kid steps up to the mic and says, "I'd like to dedicate this to my father, Francis L. This is a song the girls in the band wrote, Lisa and Wendy." The kid launches into Purple Rain, and through the course of an emotional performance, he wins over the crowd. He makes amends to his bandmates, with a beautiful moment as he kisses Wendy on the cheek. He asks for forgiveness for himself and for his father for their mistreatment of their women. And as the triumphant performance ends, the kid runs off stage and out the back to get on his bike and leave, when he suddenly hears the screams and shouts and applause coming from inside. As the kid re-enters the club, Apollonia is there waiting at the end of the corridor, and after a brief but emotional few words in his ear, he returns to the stage, and it's celebration time. The final 2 numbers, I Would Die For You and Baby I'm a Star, are performed, as the kid and the Revolution rock the house, with even Morris and Jerome dancing and celebrating in the crowd. The kid and his band have finally made it.
Purple Rain is really a fun, entertaining movie that really excited people. You laughed, you got into the characters, the music was incredible. And it was a really, really important film. And in terms of the black film movement that we have in America now, people don't really totally see it as a part of that, but I would say this young black man basically pushed and shoved his way to a major feature film, and it succeeded.
I asked him in which ways Purple Rain was accurate and not accurate, and he said that they definitely, as he said, juiced up or kicked up the script a little to make it more entertaining. His father didn't have a gun. His father didn't swear and beat up his mother that way, or that's what he said. But the basic elements were there.
I remember the first time I went to see Purple Rain, and I walked in and I sat down in this movie theater, packed with people, and here's Prince's head, 40 feet tall, and everybody's just saying, God, that's incredible. And to me, I saw that movie unlike anybody else in the world, because to me, we were still in the studio working together and doing that thing. And what I saw on the screen was not this huge superstar, but I saw this kid that achieved his goal.